Hello everyone, hope you're having a wonderful day. Today we're stepping into a stormy morning at 5:31 a.m. where James stands outside the ER door while Diep battles a sudden collapse and one painful injection goes wrong. In that pale hospital light, a single question hangs in the air. Can a steady hand and a quiet promise hold back the hardest night? Stay with me to see how love survives minute by minute. If you enjoy this, don't forget to subscribe so you never miss the next story. The sky hung low and grey like a warning, the wind howling against the ambulance doors as if it wanted in. One line kept knocking at James's ribs. If love is a promise, storms are the test. He pressed his palm over Diep's fingers and asked a quiet question meant more for himself than for anyone else. Can a vow be strong enough to hold in weather like this? The hospital swallowed them in fluorescent light and antiseptic sting. Floors slick, air cold, monitors blinking like faraway lighthouses. James's slippers slapped the tile, a hurried rhythm that gave away how fast he had left the house. Smoke from the early rice porridge still clung to his shirt, a faint kitchen ghost following him down the corridor. Orderlies took the stretcher. He kept pace with a short, stubborn stride, one hand fixed on the bedrail, the other covering Diep's hand as if warmth could travel skin to skin and do what medicine could not. Her face had gone pale, the kind of white that scares you, lips parted, eyes half closed as pain swept through her in quiet, brutal waves. The clock read 5:31 a.m. Time began to stretch like gum pulled thin. Each minute made a small cut. Nurses passed in a soft flurry, souls whispering, clipboards thudding lightly against their hips. The emergency room door closed with a soft click that sounded too final. James stood there, hands in his pockets, shoulders folded in, but his face stayed forward. "She'll be fine," he told himself. He did not believe or disbelieve the words. He used them like a railing. Outside, wind dragged rain across the parking lamps until the light blurred. Inside, the air held the metallic taste of fear you don't speak out loud. Diep's illness had always been a quiet thing, a genetic thread that tugged hardest when the weather turned. He remembered the moment she swayed in their kitchen, the world going soft around her eyes, the way the wooden spoon clattered in the basin like a bell. He had not hesitated. He rarely did when her body called. Jacket, keys, slippers, door. Now his breath counted seconds with the monitor beeps bleeding through the wall. A man unremarkable to anyone else stood there steady as a post, and that steadiness was its own vow. They moved her to a room as the sky lightened to a tired silver. Fluorescence hummed, the wall clock ticked with the kind of politeness that feels cruel. Diep lay small on the bed, an IV line taped to her arm, skin peppered by fresh punctures. The nurse readied the next injection, a calm face, a careful hand. Pain arrived anyway. It cut fast, clean and certain. Diep's breath caught, then shook. Tears rose without drama, quiet and sure as rain running off eaves. "Cry," James said, his voice low, "the kind you use when you want words to land gently. It will ease your heart." His thumb found her knuckles like it already knew the path home. He would have taken the needle into his own arm if the world allowed trades like that. He could not, so he did the small things. Adjusted her pillow. Warmed his palm against her shoulder as if heat could argue with pain. Watched her face the way sailors watch skies. The doctor came, voice even. The previous shot had gone astray, he explained, and the tissue reaction made the pain louder than it needed to be. They would fix it. He spoke the way bridges are built, one measured beam at a time. James nodded. He had no questions left to ask. He waited until the door closed, then leaned closer. "Hang in there," he said, the words steady, the gaze steadier. She blinked once in answer, a tiny bow between two tired souls. The storm thickened outside, its rumble threading into the room until thunder sounded like a giant moving furniture down the hall. Rain stitched the window with slanted lines. The building felt like a ship, and they were in its narrow belly riding out what had to be ridden. The fourth injection came. Pain rose again and left her hands shaking. She turned her face to the side, jaw tight, and the small sound she made was almost a child's. Tears slid over the bridge of her nose, not loud, not sharp, quietly certain. James did not offer promises he could not guarantee. He offered presence. He offered a hand that did not pull away at the worst part. He offered the kind of listening that makes a room feel safer. "I'm here," he said, and the words were not decoration, they were furniture, solid, useful. She nodded again, the tiniest tilt. Minutes ticked. The nurse adjusted the drip, the doctor wrote notes, the hallway phones rang and stopped and rang again. At the edge of everything, a lightning flash printed the room in negative for a second. James lifted his eyes to the window and back to her face. A long breath, then another. The beeps settled into a kinder rhythm. The worst of the spike passed. He glanced at the clock. 6:08 a.m. He could feel the day forming itself beyond the storm, the cafeteria beginning to heat rice, the parking lot collecting puddles, the first shift switching with the last. In this room, the air held still. He put his elbows on his knees and let his weight fold forward so that his forehead almost met the back of his hand, still holding hers. He did not pray aloud. He let the shape of a prayer sit in his chest without words. This is where the conflict lives, he thought, without naming it. Not in a court or an argument. Here, between a body that betrays and a love that refuses to. Between the needle and the palm, between time that cuts and time that heals. He looked up. "We are not leaving this fight," he said, more to the room than to her. She heard anyway. Her eyelids fluttered, a tired salute. Rain hit the glass like fingers drumming. Somewhere down the hall, someone laughed too loudly and then apologized. A cart squeaked, a door sighed, a page called a name that was not theirs. The world went on. Inside this small square of light, two people kept their corner. She breathed, slower now. He sat straighter and checked the tape on her line, the sheet edge, the slope of the pillow against her neck. Small corrections, quiet repairs. When the nurse returned to check vitals, she found an ordinary scene anyone could pass by. A man in cheap slippers and a woman with needles in her arm. Nothing to see, you might say. But if you looked again, you would notice the exact way his thumb rested along her fingers as if memorizing them, the way her breath followed the rise and fall of his shoulder. You would notice how storms can press on glass without cracking it. You would understand that sometimes love is not spectacle. It is a chair you do not vacate, a door you do not leave, a minute you share, even when it hurts. Outside, thunder rolled closer. Inside, the room learned patience. The rise of the day met the rise of the pain, and the pain began little by little to come down. The room grew quieter the way storms do before they break. Fluorescence hummed, the IV whispered, then pain hit hard, sudden as a slammed door. Diep's hand jerked. Her breath snagged. The fourth injection had left a small violet bruise and fresh medicine pressed against it. Her eyes went distant. James moved closer until his shoulder touched the mattress. "Look at me," he said, not loud. Her eyes found his, a sharp breath, a long one, another sharp. She bit her lip, then let go. Tears rose, not a flood, clear proof that pain had the chair for a moment. "We ride this one," he said, "together." The monitor stuttered, thunder rolled, a metal tray clattered. Then the doctor entered, voice careful. He checked the site, adjusted the line, shifted the needle by a hair. "Better," he said, not as a promise but as a map. The beeps steadied, the knot in Diep's jaw loosened. Her hand opened in his palm. That was the hinge. The room turned from fear toward air. Rain flung white veils across the window. James stretched his back. "Food," he said. She nodded. He brought plain rice, roasted peanuts, and hot tea because the steam smelled like home. When he returned, her face held more color. He set the tray down and lifted the spoon. "Eat more, it will make you stronger." Simple words, but his gaze made them a plan. The first bites went down slow. He waited between each. He added a slice of pear. "Thank you for always being here," she whispered. He heard everything inside that one line and answered with a small, settled smile. Her voice steadied. She spoke of the illness, how weather drags hidden weight forward, how dizziness blurs edges, how the body feels like a boat whose ropes slip. He did not rush to fix what an hour cannot fix. "You're not alone in this boat," he said. "I row." The storm softened to steady patter. He called Mr. Lin about the shed, speaking with his usual practical calm. Dates, boards, budget. A plan took shape while thunder grumbled. When he hung up, the room felt more ordered. Life outside had not stopped. It met them where they were. The phone buzzed again. Grandma Huyen, James put it on speaker. The kitchen came through, a low bulb, porcelain clink. "Uncle James?" Nee's voice rang clear. "I miss Aunt Diep so much." James glanced at Diep, then at the phone. "Aunt Diep will be back with you soon," he said, warmth like hands to a stove. Diep turned toward the sound, a faint smile finding her. "I'm getting better," she said, "maybe tomorrow or the next day." "I'll be good," Nee answered. "Please get better." Hope climbed each word like a ladder. Huyen said little, but her breath sounded like a smile. Two rooms met across a line of sound. When the call ended, the quiet felt woven, not empty. Diep closed her eyes for rest that had shape. Evening thinned the light. Shoes squeaked less. Bulbs warmed. The wet edge of James's cuffs finally dried. He lay on top of the blanket beside her, careful of lines and tape, their hands linked like a sentence that finally found its verb. "I will always protect you," he said. Not a flourish, a chair you can set weight on. Tears found her again, different ones. Not pain, relief. She thanked Huyen in a half whisper, thanked everyone who stood close when wind tried to push them apart. Gratitude changed the air. The room exhaled. Night settled. The building cooled. Rain brushed the glass. Inside, steady breath met steady breath. The machines kept time like a drummer who knows when to stay in the pocket. James watched her sleep and felt fear loosen. Not gone, less sharp. He thought of the morning, of 5:31 and how each minute cut. He thought of kitchens and smoke and slippers, of needles and small adjustments that matter. He thought of promises and what they look like when no one claps. Trays with rice, calls at the right hour, a chair held through weather, a hand that stays. By midnight, the storm had spent itself. Stray drops ticked on the sill. In the first quiet, he let his eyes close a moment, not sleep, a harbour. When he opened them, she was looking at him. "Still here?" she mouthed. "Still here," he said. Morning would bring rounds and paperwork, the doctor with careful words, maybe permission to take her home. They would step into rain-washed streets, the city rinsed and blinking. There would be errands and roofs to fix, and a shed to raise and a child to hold, and Tuesday to survive. None of it easy. But the worst of this night had passed and left them with something like ground. He squeezed her hand. The last crack of thunder faded far away, the way old fears do when you teach your body a new rhythm. He poured her water. She drank. Behind the cloud, dawn rehearsed itself. This is the closing image, two hands linked in a pale hospital room while a storm gives up its noise. Not triumphant, enduring, a light that does not flare, yet refuses to die. One line remained in the air like a final chord. If love is a promise, this is how it keeps itself. Minute by minute, through weather, through waiting, through the quiet work of staying. At dawn, a storm hammers Futho Hospital as James rushes deep inside after she collapses, fluorescent antiseptic air. Time drags at 5:31 a.m. Diep's genetic illness flares. A misplaced injection sharpens her pain. Tears come. James offers what he has. Presents, a steady hand, repairs, pillow, blanket, breath. The doctor adjusts the line, the monitor steadies. Outside, rain bruises the windows. Inside, rice, roasted peanuts, hot tea, and a slice of pear become a plan for strength. A call to Grandma Huyen and Ni bridges kitchen warmth to the hospital room, carrying hope. James arranges a shed with Mr.
Lin, proof that life continues. Evening softens. He lies beside Diep, hand in hand, not promises but staying. By night's end, the storm thins, fear loosens, and breath finds rhythm. The closing image, two linked hands, a vow holding through weather.